The purpose for the workshop was to arrive, hopefully, at a set of questions as to what constitutes the maritime risk, and even engaging on what does that risk require in order for us to have mitigation plan. And how we thought we would do it is because we have enough database of events, of incidents, and we've had to respond to countless number of incidents. In fact, it was quite refreshing to relive some of those experiences, tough as they were, but it tells you what can go wrong, which is not always apparent on a normal day, as they call it, peacetime. So the reason then, the objective is to arrive at a document around which we can go canvassing support for the mitigation that we need to be in place. How do you fund the risk and what that risk is, starting with with an assessment of what we have today. I think the number of people in the room had very high quality participation. We had a few legal minds, we had a few experts, we've had a few environmentalists, a few weather experts. So we had very, very good participation, and I think it showed in the deliberation, which I'm quite happy about. As I'm saying, I'm hoping that by the end of the 2 days, I will have a document that will tell us what this risk is that we have in 2019 going up to 2030. What gap, what technologies exist today that perhaps are not there in the past? How do we compare to where we want to be? And if we find that gap, how do we go about closing it? The maritime transport policy does provide for a few options to say that there are mechanisms that we can put in place, but those mechanisms need canvassing with industry in particular. And so this is a consensus workshop with industry. That's why to us, industry's participation was quite critical. Starting with the role of SAMSA. SAMSA is the only organ of state that is charged with ensuring the safety of life at sea as well as the protection of the maritime environment. No other organ of state or any other entity for that matter. Now, for SAMSA to be able to discharge that obligation, which is huge, you need to have a lot of capacity. But we've determined that you are not going to have government paying for 100% of that capacity. Rather, you have a discussion with industry to say, those of you service providers, those of you users of the ocean, what is your role in this whole issue? And our view is that if we encourage enough business activity and insist on those who are doing business that they keep some preparedness for their own operations, then the state can draw from those at the time of need, from those resources that you expect for them to be there for standby purposes, for normal operations. So that is the collaboration with industry. Now it talks to issues of funding. If you do not adopt that approach, then it means the state must fund 100% of the capability required, keep the preparedness. And now what generally happens is that over time, incidents don't happen every day. So you keep that capacity and you don't use that capacity for 5 years and you're paying for it. After 5 years, you think you can reduce that capacity. And lo and behold, on the 6th year, the big incident happened. I used an example earlier that the reason we need to be talking about these things, you do not want the country to be plunged in the same situation that the power load shedding has brought us. It is conceivable that ESCOM may have spoken about this, but may have not shouted loud enough. And now we are forced to listen because we're confronted with the eventuality that they set with. Now, I didn't know about the difficulties in power generation. That's why it comes as a surprise. Now, we don't want to surprise the country. On the contrary, and I know it may not be a popular example, the Western Cape spoke about day zero. Consequently, everybody is wary of taps running dry. We all know about day zero. So the consciousness of the general public on these matters is quite important, particularly from our stakeholders. So those issues of ensuring that the discussion is there, matters are put on the table. Fortunately, the policy envisages some of these. We just need to work out the mechanisms and find an agreement, which is what you call the collaboration. So this process should lead to at least one document that has got consensus as its support, as well as some options around the funding, which are many and varied until we deliberate on them tomorrow. And so for me, overall, where we are today, I'm quite happy with what we've covered. As I'm saying, the whole secret lies in how we conclude and what follow-up becomes post this workshop.